Should have probably put something over this because they ain't giving me no money for that.
Welcome to the Journey of Self-Growth podcast, episode 14. I'm ThE, the host of this event, which is created so myself and others could share perspective on the concept of it in hopes that one another's insights would be relatable, establishes awareness, and inspires listeners to adopt and maintain such behavior. The definition of self-growth, sorry, my phone. All right. The definition of self growth is the process of developing skills, attitudes, actions, or reactions that can have a beneficial impact on your life and increases your overall well being. Tonight's guest is a friend of mine, also a California native. His name is Charles McCornell. Hello, Charles. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kite. How are you, my man, this evening?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you asking. What can you tell me about yourself?
Well, I'm a young man who grew up in Richmond, California. I grew up on the north side of Richmond, which is considered the trenches back in those days, growing up in the 80s. Um, I have gone to college. I went to Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, the only state-funded HBCU that's in the state of Ohio. Um, After that, I moved to Atlanta, where I started my career in stagehand slash camera operation. Um, and then I moved back to California and became a union member of the IATSE, Local 107. And now I am living in El Dorado, Arkansas. Um, and yeah, I'm just, doing my thing now, man.
Speaking of doing your thing, how are you currently growing?
Right now, I'm currently growing by being self-aware of things that I need to work on. Um, Growing every day, spiritually, mentally, physically. Um, I think I started back really self-growth in 2018 when I decided to become plant-based slash vegan. I really don't like to put a label on it. I just say healthy eater. Um, at that time, I weighed about 400 pounds. I was on the verge of being a diabetic, high blood pressure. Um, I developed sleep apnea. And so then I just made a conscious decision that, if I wanted to live a long life like the people in my family, I wanted to improve myself health wise. And then in that process, it really helped me to develop myself mentally because growing up, I used to call myself a meatitarian, um, where I just ate all meat, pork, all that stuff. I made a conscious decision in 2008 before I even became a plant-based healthy eater. I stopped eating pork for health reasons as well. Um, and I just wanted to be able to live a long life um, because I wanted to be having a family, and also I wanted to have kids. I wanted to be around to watch them grow.
Wow. I appreciate you elaborating on how you're currently growing. I I also admire your efforts to refine how you eat. I personally have been inspired by your change in diet. I have incorporated eating more healthy since being a witness to how you changed. So
Okay, that's what's up.
yeah. Um, what would be some results of that you've experienced as a result of your decision to become vegan?
Well, a lot of stuff. First off, I didn't realize that, the stuff that you put in your body, um, it affects your mind, um, as well as your health and your overall. just a way of thinking. Since I've become a healthy eater, um, my vision has come clearer. Um, the weight, that was like the first thing that I noticed that just was falling off. Like I stated, in 2017, I went to the doctor because I usually do an annual checkup, and I stepped on the scale and I weighed 398 pounds. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work for me. So since then, I've lost a lot of weight. I probably in total, because in I believe, yeah, it'll be in July. It'll be 6 years now that I've become a plant-based healthy eater. And in total, I've probably lost like 150 pounds.
Hmm.
Um, I got down to my smallest uh, about 220,
Hmm.
but then the pandemic hit. And so when the pandemic hit, I wasn't able to go to the gym and I had to like start doing outside things. So that kind of helped me. But then in 2021, I had my son. And for some reason, I was getting all the baby cravings. So I start eating. I start eating. I didn't go to eating no meat or anything like that, but I was eating a lot of processed food, a lot of sweets, um, and things of that nature that was kind of putting more weight back on me. So I ended up getting back to like 280.
Hmm.
But since moving out here back to Arkansas in September, I've been working on my health, and I got down. I'm down to like 240 now. So yeah, that's the weight has been the most surprising about that because before when I was working out, it was just falling off. But then I actually deliberately not I actually made it my purpose not to go to the gym just to see if it was the gym or was it the actual healthy eating choice that I made, and the weight uh hadn't come back. So I realized that it's really been the choice of eating and
Hmm.
making that big decision.
I can relate to what you're saying. I recently, not recently, I would say over the last year and a half, decided to incorporate exercise in my life.
Okay.
And that was due to the fact that I noticed that I was overweight and
You
I,
overweight?
yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with like my appearance, you know.
Got it. Okay. I understand that.
And so I just reflected on my youth and my weight during then, and
Okay.
I noticed like my metabolism had slowed down after
Right.
25, and
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't eat well all that I wanted, and my metabolism would just burn it away.
Right.
So I had to make a decision to manage how I was going to eat food and also reduce the weight. So I decided to um, start power walking, and so
Okay.
I power walk about 3 times a week, and
Okay. That's what's up.
I intentionally stagger the days, and
Yeah.
the schedule is, if I can help it, Monday I'll power walk, Tuesday I take a day off, Wednesday I do it again, then I take 2 days off,
Okay.
Thursday, Friday, which gives my body to recover from the excessive walking in between Monday and Wednesday. And then Saturday, I do it again and then repeat the following week.
Okay. Oh,
And
that's a good regimen. That's a good regimen.
yeah, I like that. And I don't feel any aches or pains due to the length of walking that I do, which is
Okay.
5 miles. And I walk in the morning I start at 8:30, and power walking, if you're going 5 miles, it takes about 2 hours.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel great. I don't feel exhausted due to the fact that I'm running. Now I'm walking for 2 hours at a fast pace, versus
Okay.
running for 2 hours. And it's possible to overextend ourselves when we're exercising. So I don't want to like create wear and tear on my knees. So I feel like power walking is a good exercise if we're running on concrete. Maybe on the dirt, running would be okay, but power walking is good uh,
Right.
on concrete. So I encourage people to consider doing that. And I had a checkup about it about 6 months ago, and I think my weight was 150 pounds, which
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's amazing.
yeah, I think the last time I got weighed it was like 170.
Okay.
So yeah, it I was very pleased to, discover the outcome of my efforts. Um, I'm curious to know, you said that you I think you said you don't like to put labels on um the way you consume food. Like you don't
Right.
want to be labeled a vegan or a vegetarian. Why is that?
Well, more I think more so for me, I don't like to put labels on a lot of things because we live in a world where in today's world a lot of people like to put labels.
Hmm.
And then now, like right before I became plant-based or healthy eater, it really wasn't popular. But nowadays it's popular. So when you go into like grocery stores, especially like in California, before I left, you go into grocery stores, you see a lot of things, and the world that I live in, we have it where the consumer sometimes get tricked into labels.
Hmm.
So um, the people who are putting these products out, they're learning the different trends that's going on. So now they're just slapping like vegan labels on or plant-based labels on a lot of the food that we're eating, and a lot of it. I tell people all the time, like, so when I first transitioned, one of the things I used to do was I used to read a lot. I used to follow Dr. Sebi, and one of the things he used to say was before buying something, turn it around and look at the actual ingredients on the back and not just what's on the front. So when you look at the front of labels, there's a lot of stuff that says plant-based, right?
Hmm.
But the crazy thing about that is that when you look at the ingredients on the back, it's plant-based, but it's also have like some things that you don't want to do. Like it could be high in corn syrup,
Hmm.
um, high in sugar. I've learned that based on, and then also what I learned by doing by with Dr. Sabian, I also used to follow Dr. Africa. Basically, they if you know what your blood type is, and I tell people all this all the time, because I learned this after I became a plant-based healthy eater. But if you know what your blood type is, if you eat the foods that is that you can take in and your body can break it down. There are certain foods for certain blood types. So for me, I'm a O negative, right?
Hmm.
And for people who are O, who have the blood type of O negative or O period, it if I wanted to go back to eating meat, I would have to eat a lot of lean meat. So for example, I would have to eat like bison, which is kind of rare because there's really no bisons just running around in the world today. um, Lean meat like goat, lamb. Um, what else? What it was? It was another one as well. But it then it's like, for example, like being that the reason why I don't also want to put the vegan or plant-based or alkaline or things of that nature because there's some things that people who are vegan that eat that I can't eat because it does things to my body. So a
Hmm.
perfect example is I can't I can, but I don't like to consume black beans.
Hmm.
And because I am a my blood type is O negative, for me, if I eat black beans, it causes bad indigestion.
Hmm.
So, a lot of times when you deal with people who will say that they're vegan, right? They eat just strictly fruits, vegetables, beans, um, nuts, and things of that nature. So another example is being that I'm an O blood type, I really shouldn't be eating like cashew nuts because it'll make an allergic reaction in my body.
Mm,
Also, another thing is like corn because that when I put that in my body, it'll take a longer process to digest it, and then that's mainly what happens with your body when you start eating the things that you're not supposed to eat. It takes your body a long time to digest it, and
mm-hmm,
then it also creates sugar, and it also creates um, fat fatty cells in your body, and that's how you gain the weight. Because
mm,
basically, when you start eating things that's not good to your blood type. So another perfect example, like if someone who's who blood type is A, right? It says in the book because I got this herbal book and I can't remember the name of it because it's been a while since I read it, but it breaks down like each blood type and what you can and cannot eat. So a
mm,
person who has a blood type of A, it says that you shouldn't even consume of chicken
mm,
because the chicken can cause you to gain weight and also cause your blood pressure to go up, and it creates a lot of um, acid and things of that nature.
mm-hmm,
Now, for me, being that I am plant-based and healthy living, what it also does is that like certain fruits that I can't eat because it'll make my sugar rise up. So it'll just do the same thing as if I was eating bad things or not eating healthy. It'll start developing sugar in my body where I can start maybe developing into a diabetic again.
mm,
So a perfect example for me would be like it says that I shouldn't eat pineapples because pineapples is high in acidic acids, and it's also high in sugar. Even though it's a natural sugar, it can still be high in sugar. So that's why sometimes where you have, and that's another reason why I don't put on labels, because you have some people out there who say that they're a fruitarian, and that person just eats meat. I
mm-hmm,
mean, I'm sorry, eats fruit, and that can also cause you can be a diabetic because too much fruit because of because people think because you're eating fruit it's healthy, but at the same time some of the fruit that you're eating that's high in acidics and also high in sugar can start developing a lot of sugar in your body, and then that's when you go into being a diabetic.
mm,
So it's like it's really a science to all of this, and I tell people now like you don't have to go vegan. You don't have to go plant-based. You don't have to go vegetarian. If you know what your blood type is, you can just read up on your blood type and the things that you can eat and not eat that's good for your body, and you'll maintain a weight and lose the weight as well. So, because I get a lot of the what I get is that when I tell people that when I used to tell people I'm vegan, the first thing that come out their mouth is, so what do you eat? Do you just eat salad? Do you just, you know what I mean? So, and I tell them no, I eat food. Like I just make sure that the food that I eat, because also I used to be a person that cooked a lot. I love to cook. So for me, I've learned how to cook things that I like. So perfect example is I'm a person I used to love mayonnaise or mayo, whatever you want to call it. I was a baby that was born on Miracle Whip, and I realized that was horrible. So I like making I like to make chickpea burgers and stuff like that, but I also like to have I'm a sauce type person, like so I like to dip things and all that. So I learned how to make mayonnaise on my own
mm,
just by doing my research. So I use a variety of different ingredients and stuff like that, and I like to play around because at the end of the day, it can get boring when you become a healthy eater.
mm,
Uh, you start eating just salads, or you start eating just beans, or you just start eating nuts and stuff like that. It can get a little boring. So I've learned how to do things such as like I like tacos, right? So I've learned to make walnut meat into ground beef. I also I used to be a big chicken person. So I've learned like I what I do is I have a thing where I make I call it chicken, vegan chicken. Some people like to just do mushrooms, and I'm not a big mushroom person, but I've learned that if I mix things with it, so I do like lion's mane mushroom and chickpeas, and then I make that into a chicken.
Mm. It's
So,
interesting.
it's just different things out there that you can do to, elevate your palate, even as a healthy eater.
I appreciate the insight on eating plants. And I was gonna say veganism, but I don't know if that's relevant. I mean, I feel like you don't have to tell me that you're a vegan in order to eat healthy. So I
Right,
appreciate
right.
I appreciate that. And outside of using labels for consumer purposes, from your perspective, are labels relevant at all?
You mean like in everyday life?
Yes.
Uh, I, we well, we live in a world today where a lot of people have labels and they like to label themselves and be put in these categories. And I'm a type of person where I don't like to be just put in a box.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to label myself to one group or one thing. So, but I think that like when it comes to like job wise or professionalism, I think their labels are appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But like if as a regular person living an everyday life, I don't really subscribe to labels and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that too. I I kind of like I write songs, I write lyrics,
Right.
but
Okay.
I don't think I would ever say that I am an expert songwriter, even if I had thousands of songs underneath my belt. Because when I think of the term expert, it seems like um, I'm on a different echelon than other people. And if we're all experts, I mean, what would it matter if I myself is as an individual is an expert?
Right.
So yeah, I think I'm a proponent of the idea of not necessarily needing to use labels for identification purposes.
Right.
But maybe there is some relevance to labels in life in general. And people who are listening, if you have want to share your perspective on the importance or not importance of label, I'm curious to know what y'all think. So please do comment and try to read that. Um, and so you said that you've been migratory throughout your life. You started in California, went to Ohio, went to college there, um, from Ohio to Atlanta, and back to California. Now you're in Arkansas.
Right. Right.
I think that takes some courage, and I think one has to be ambitious to put forth that type of effort because I've had conversations with people who told me that they know um, others who have never been outside of their city borders.
Yeah.
And so what inspired you to decide to venture outside of California?
Well, for me personally, I'm not a big fan of California,
Mm,
just to be honest with you. I tell people all the time that that's a place where I was born and raised. I've been all up and down California, all the way up north, close to Oregon, to all the way down south, close to San Diego. And like I love where I'm from. Don't get me wrong. It shaped me to be the person that I am and have the mindset that I have. But I really, as I've grown into the man that I am today, um, the direction and what goes on in California just never really suited me.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the main reason why I ventured out is because especially when it came to college, I was a person that was a big advocate of going to a HBCU, which is a historical Black college university, and we just don't have none in the state of California. We have one in particular that's down in LA, but it's more so a more if you want to be in the medical field,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a private school, so it's like kind of hard to get into that. But as far as like HBCUs, you have to venture out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and growing up, one of my favorite movies was School Days.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of like shaped me into the person that I am because I always wanted to experience that Black college experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the main reason why I went to Ohio. One is because I was offered a partial scholarship to play football there because I played football in high school and I went to junior college and played football. And then I end up like making my own highlight tapes and shipping them out to different HBCUs. And they were one of the people that answered and told me because when I first went to Central State, they were bringing back their football program because it had been gone for a couple of years. I want to say maybe almost a decade. So they were on the verge of bringing their football program back.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the main reason why I moved to Ohio and went to Ohio is because Central State asked me to come and they offered me a partial scholarship. Now, when I got there, um, it was a totally different story. Um, I found out that I was going to have to pay for go to school, and so at that point, I just decided just to not. I stopped playing football, and I just became a scholar. Um, Due to some circumstances in my life, um, in 2006, my mom was diagnosed with. Well, she was born with lupus, and she began to get sick, and so I took it upon myself not to leave because I graduated in 2003. So I could have left earlier, like right after I graduated high school, but I wanted to stick around with my mom just to make sure she was good. So in 2007, it was like my second year at junior college, and I had played football and everything. Like I said, I got an answer from a couple of colleges asking me to come. I got an answer from Tyler College. Well, I'm sorry, Texas College, which is in Tyler, Texas. And then I got a letter from Central State. And then I
Mm-hmm.
also got a letter from I think it's called Edward Water or something like that. And it's in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So and what really kind of made my decision on going to Ohio was um, I'm a big Dave Chappelle fan, and he came out with a movie called The Block Party.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and my mom and my sister went to go see the movie in the theater. And when I'm watching it, I'm a big person that I'm a very spiritual person, and I'm a person that um, believe in signs, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we're sitting there watching the movie, I'm not sure if everybody have seen this movie or not, but the school that he was at and the band that he had planned for him was Central State University.
Mm-hmm.
So when I seen that, I was like, oh yeah, this is a sign from the Most High and the ancestors right now telling me like, because I was like, dilemma of do I want to go to Texas, do I want to go to Ohio, or do I want to go to Florida?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I seen that, I was like, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go. So I eventually went to Ohio. I didn't even go on a visit. I didn't even see what the campus looked like. I just went on faith. Uh, I prayed, and I got a lot of visions and a lot of signs. And the Most High just told me that this is the place to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I went there. And so that's why I made a decision there. But what had me go to Atlanta was that when I was on spring break in Central State, I went down with a friend down to Atlanta, and they call Atlanta the Mecca for Black folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went down there, I just fell in love with it because I also wanted to work into the entertainment industry. I've always wanted to be a camera guy. I started off wanted to be on the radio. And so like while I was still in junior college, I worked for Central State. I mean, I worked for Clear Channel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a eye opener on how the entertainment business is, especially in
Mm-hmm.
the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So then I ventured off into camera work. And then from there, that's why I moved down to Atlanta because they call it the Hollywood of the South.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I moved to Atlanta and I went there. But eventually I came back. Most of the time when I came back to California, it was due to family reasons.
Mm-hmm.
This last time going there, I wanted because I wasn't there when my mom passed away. I wanted to come and be with my family, and I wanted to be especially with my grandparents who were getting older, because I felt like I had missed some time while I was gone in Ohio and Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved back to California, and then now I'm here in El Dorado. I'm living in the house that my grandfather was raised in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just wanted to have a peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times that I moved, it was either due to college, my professionalism as being in the entertainment and working in, because I wanted to, my goal is always to do movies and be a
Mm-hmm.
cameraman for movies. And so when I was in Atlanta, I had opportunities where I was able to work on different sets for different movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but while working there, I realized that in order to make it the way I wanted to, I was going to have to join a union. So that's the main reason why I came to California is just to give back into the with my family and also join the union that I'm a part of, which is the IATSE union, which is part of the entertainment business. So that's mainly why I just moved around and ventured off into different areas. But now at this point in my life, I'm 39 years old. I'll be 40 in December. I'm mainly about peace.
Mm-hmm.
And out here where I'm at now, it's a peace of mind. I don't have to worry about nobody kicking in my back door, front door. I live in an area where people literally get out their car while it's running and go into the store and shop for an hour and come back to their car.
Wow.
So, and that's a different story where I'm from in California.
I have a question regarding your decisions to move from the various states, and
Uh-huh.
it's based off of a theory. My theory is initiating initiation plus experience
Right.
equals enhanced perspective. And I'll use an analogy. If I'm at the base of a mountain and I choose not to um, ascend it, then
Mhm.
my perspective will always be at the base of the mountain. But if I choose to put forth an effort and scale the mountain, in theory, when I reach the top, that experience will help to enhance my perspective. So you did mention that when you went to college, there was some communication about how your scholarship or your tuition was going to be paid for, but unexpectedly you discovered that you would have to come out of pocket, which could be perceived as a problem. But sometimes some people might say it's a blessing in disguise. But so my question is, based on your initiating going to college, which was the experience, what value did what valuable resource in terms of enhancing your perspective could you have taken away from that?
When I went to Ohio or just in general?
Let's say the college experience.
The value I got out of going to Ohio was the perspective of um, there's a different world outside of California.
Hmm.
Where we're from, we come from a place in the Bay Area where it's different walks of life, it's different ethnicities, it's different religions and race and all those things.
Mm,
And the one thing that I got out of it is that there's each state that I've lived in is totally different from one another.
mm,
We live in the United States of America, but there's really nothing united about it. Like there's different set of laws, there's different ways of living, there's different lingo. So the value that I got out of that was basically that I was able to experience different things that I would never have experienced if I lived in California and stayed in California, especially if I stayed in the Bay Area.
mhm,
Um, and then it also gave me value to um, learn from other people. When I went to school, I went to school with people who were from Miami, Florida, who was from Detroit, Michigan, who was from Chicago, Illinois. Um, I even to school with people who were from Indianapolis, Indiana.
mhm,
So I got to learn from all these different people, like their perspective on life and how
mhm,
they move and what they value and what they don't value and things of that nature. So that was like the main thing I've got out of um, going to school. And then I also have made some lifelong friends to this day some who I've traveled with, some who I've gone back and seen, some that I keep in contact with and who keep in contact with me. So it's you end up finding family as well. Because I
mhm.
have people who I consider my family. I got a couple of guys who I consider my brothers, um, and I got a couple of people who I consider my sisters. Um, and then you just also experience college. Like
Mhm,
my mother was a big advocate of having me and my sister go to college because she wasn't able to go to college. So
mhm,
she wanted us to experience that and not just go to college because some people will go to college where in their state or literally around the corner from where they at. Because where we're from, there's a whole bunch of colleges, and universities and state universities and stuff like that. But I wanted to experience life differently than California.
mhm.
So that was the main thing that I got out of going to school, especially in Ohio, in the Midwest, was that I was able to experience and get a value of life and a perspective of life that I probably would never have gotten if I stayed in California.
I never went to college myself. I don't regret it, but I do it would seem that there is value in going to college, and I'm very into to
Right,
culture in general, and I think
right,
culture can help to um, raise my self-awareness based on how other people are conducting themselves within the cultures that,
right.
I'm a witness to. How would you describe the Central State culture?
Uh, I would say this, man. Central State was an eye opener, right?
Hmm.
It opened my eye up to the culture of Black colleges.
Hmm.
Um, because the culture at Central State was when I first got there, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was very ghetto,
Mm.
very ghetto. Some of the dorms that I stayed in was not up to par. Now, since then, they have changed a lot of things.
Hmm.
But when I first got there, Central State was on the verge of like changing the culture that had become there. Because before I got there, the culture was like what you seen on a different world or what you've seen in school days, um, or any of those those HBCU or college based type.
Mm.
But when I got there, the culture was very ghetto, and I say that with good intentions because I'm from the ghetto, so it was kind of like being at home. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I realized what this is not what I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience a college life and uplift the values that I had by living in Richmond, California.
Hmm.
So the culture there, it's changed tremendously. Um, but when I first got there, I was thinking to myself, is this where I want to be at? You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, this is a little, you know what I mean? Like I could go back home and experience some of this. But as the years going on that I was there, it got better and better every year.
Mm,
So, and then it started to be like because I'm a person that wasn't really exposed to different things such as like sororities and fraternities, different societies. Because I also realized that when you go to college, right, it's not really about what you learn. It's more so about your networking because everybody, like for example, when I had a critical thinking class, and the teacher in that class was teaching us how because a lot of people had the perspective of like all I got to do is go to college, get a degree, and then I'm going to get a good job that's going to pay me a lot of money. But this teacher, and this is really why I liked him, because he was a person that made me think, and he made us all think. So basically, he told us like the perspective that America puts on going to a higher learning. It's not really about what you're learning and um and everything like that. It's more so of the relationships that you have because say for instance, when I graduated, it was like 1,200 people graduating, right?
hmm
But also you have to realize there was a school across the street. It was another school around the corner, like 5 miles away, called Wright Pat University. And my teacher told us, you realize that it's going to be a million plus people graduating the same time that you graduate. So those are the same people that you're now going to have to compete with when you go to the next level in your professional career. And just because you went to certain you obtain the certain knowledge that you obtain doesn't mean that you're going to automatically get a good job.
hmm
Because I know a lot of people who I either graduated with or I went to school with or are different schools who have all these degrees and everything, and they're not even working in the job that they had a degree in.
hmm
So that's one of the things that I've learned that education is good, and you really don't have to go to college to obtain that information that you need to get into furthering your knowledge and expanding your horizon.
hmm
But it's also about the networking that you do.
mm,
And
okay.
that right there is what's going to get you further ahead in life is the networking.
Okay. Appreciate that. What's the mascot name for Central State?
The Marauders.
Marauders. I'm not familiar with the
A
Marauders. What can
marauder is a pirate, is a
mm,
melanated pirate. Um, so the Marauders were one of the main groups who so for a perfect example, uh Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
hmm hmm
So the character was Johnny Depp's character, I believe his name is
Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow character is actually um imitating, or I should say inspired by one of the famous marauders that used to sail the seas. Was his name was Jack Black,
Mm,
and he was a melanated man. And the character that you see in the Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean, is kind of based off of a marauder. So a marauder is nothing more than a melanated pirate.
hmm Oh,
So so yeah, that's what our mascot was, the Central State Marauders.
hmm. That's interesting. Um, cool. And then another question that I have for you is you said that you consider yourself to be a spiritual person. You reference the Dave Chappelle movie as a guide to help you make the decision to decide to attend Central State? Are there other divine signs that you've experienced in your life that help you to along the way in your journey? And if so, what would they be?
Oh yeah. So I think the perfect example I can give you is in December, on December 26th of 2010. That was the day I lost my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a big mama's boy. I love my mother to death. My mother raised me. Um, and that day I lost my mother, I was actually on winter break in Ohio.
Mm,
I had talked to her the night before,
mm,
and when I was raised and when I was brought up, I was brought up in a Baptist church and
mm-hmm,
also a CME church. So I was very religious. I was brought up in a religious family. My grandfather is a pastor. So I come from a preacher's kid. So we were heavily into the Bible. We were heavily into um, going to church every Sunday. Um, when I used to be growing up as a child, I used to get in trouble a lot. So I would have to go with my grandfather. And my punishment, and it really wasn't a punishment, but I used to have to go to like every meeting that my grandfather had to go to. So like preachers meeting, Bible study. So I was really religious. But the day that I lost my mother, I felt that I lost my religion.
mm,
Um, because I was always taught that all you have to do is pray, and things will work out in the way that you pray.
mm,
And the things that I prayed for was that my mother would get better
mm-hmm,
and that she would never leave my side.
mm,
So that day that I lost my mother, I kind of lost my faith and I lost my perspective on spirituality and looking to those things um, that I usually look to and
mm,
finding answers and stuff.
mm-hmm,
But over the years, I've been able to be able to pray, get back into my faith and get back into my spiritual realm. And I've also noticed that my mother has never left me.
mm-hmm,
There's been times where I have prayed and then I've laid my head down and then I had visions and
mm-hmm,
I had dreams.
mm-hmm,
And I had my mother come to me a couple of times and we just had a pure conversation as if she was here physically and on this earthly realm and gave me perspective of never lose who you were raised to be.
mm,
Um, I was a growing up, I was a very outspoken child. Um, I was very different from some of my family members and friends. But my mother never deterred me from being that person. But she always used to tell me, stay grounded,
mm,
stay walk by faith and not by sight.
mm-hmm,
I then, when I lost my mother, I started to walk by sight and not by faith. And I
mm-hmm,
realized that a lot of things that I was getting myself into wasn't because God had left me or I wasn't in his favor, but it was more so that I started not believing.
mm-hmm,
I started not to listen to the things that I was getting visions and getting I can, I would like consciously, God talked to us through our conscious and through things of that nature. And I tend to started to ignore those things.
mm,
So that was one of the things that I had to get back to. And ever since I've gotten back to that, I feel better as a person because I also realized that when I wasn't um, very into my spiritual realm, I was a person that was very angry all the time. I was depressed. I was just really mad at the world. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that, and I was actually mad at God
Mm,
because I felt like, why would you take this person away from me who haven't seen me be able to grow into the man that she used to tell me that I will always be?
mm-hmm.
So I had to realize that it's a part of life. And it sucked that I had to join this club of motherless children, but eventually that I was going to be a part of that club. I just wish that it wasn't earlier in my life that it was. But I've learned since then to get back on my path of walking by faith and not by sight.
I appreciate that. And I could relate to you in terms of losing a mother. I lost a mother at a young age in my life. Well, I was in my mid 20s when my mother passed away. It was unexpected. And for me, my mother wasn't a part of my childhood. She had me at an early age. And so she was, as people say, ripping and running the streets for a lot of most of my childhood. And so unfortunately, my dad stepped in and raised me because he willingly wanted to. And around when I was like 18, 19, my mother came back into the picture voluntarily. But at the time, I was resentful of the fact that she wanted to be a part of my life then versus earlier. And so there was some conflict between us. But eventually I had to put forth an effort to forgive her. And we were able to reconcile. But surprisingly, the reconciliation only lasted maybe 5 years. And,
Right,
she passed on. So it was very challenging for me to have that experience that unexpectancy and also question like God, like why would you, allow this given the fact that we have started to bond again or
right,
bond. And so I think now in the present moment, I do have the awareness that unexpectancies are a natural occurrence in life. And
right,
I really just have to, you know, uh still focus on how can I better myself and grow in the experience, even when the experience is unexpected. And I
right,
also am a believer that my mother is still present in my life. I remember the day after she had transitioned, I was in my room and it was nighttime and there's a street light outside of my bedroom, which caused light to come into my room even when the light, my bedroom light was off. And I had to wake up. I woke up in the middle of the night, so I had to go to the restroom. And for whatever reason, I just decided to look towards the window because I wanted to just look outside.
right.
And as I'm looking towards the window, I see a transparent silhouette, not a black silhouette, but it was a transparent silhouette. And it was about the shape of my mother and the height of my mother,
Hmm.
an unexpected occurrence. And honestly, I didn't know how to react to it. All I could really do was just, be a witness to it. And I
Right,
and I theorized it was my mother visiting me to um demonstrate that, she was still here, even though she wasn't here physically. And so that helped me to endure her passing. And, I was thankful for that. I'm a believer of divine signs and interventions. I've had dreams about my mother. I think one of the dreams that I had gave me more backstory of like, why she transitioned so suddenly. She was having some high blood pressure issues, and in fairness to her health, she was willingly not making that refinement in what she was eating. And also, I think just her lifestyle. She still wasn't really at a point where she could have been a more mature adult. And so, if you willingly choose not to better yourself and you know you can, sometimes God, will, you know, some seemingly take us away from the physical world because maybe God senses, for certain individuals, well, if you're not gonna do what you can do, what's the point of you being here? And I
Right,
and in that dream, that's what it was suggesting. Like my mom could have done better, and I was aware of that too. But it was a willful act on her part not to want to better herself, I guess, to her best capabilities. But I
right,
think I think too, like when it comes to dreams, um, I think they're very intimate in terms of having a relationship with God. I feel like if you're presented with a dream, I feel like that's an amazing thing, especially if you can relate to what the message of the dream is. And so if the dream is coming from God, I just feel like that's a very sacred moment. And so to hear you talk about dreams about your mother, I feel like, for me, listening to how you had said, there was a time where you were angry with God because your mom had passed away. For God or the universe to present you with this dream, I think, um, that would help me to like have a reconciling moment with God as well if he's
right,
trying to like help me endure this hard time too.
right. Yeah, and also just before we go on, um, for me, um, I kind of knew that my mother wasn't doing well,
Hmm.
right? Because like I stated before, I was in school. I went to school in 2007. I went there for a year, but then once I found out that my mother was sick, I instantly left and came back home. Like I didn't discuss with her. I didn't discuss with anybody. I packed my car up and I drove back to California.
Hmm.
And when I was there for that year, my mother had to start doing dialysis.
Hmm.
And she can tell that it was very hard for me
Hmm.
to sit there for 3 hours and watch her get hooked up to this machine that pumped her blood out of her body, cycle it through this machine, and then put it back into her body.
Hmm.
And the woman that I knew and that raised me was a very strong person,
Hmm.
but I can see how it was weakening her and not being the same person that she was. And
Hmm.
I can tell that my mother was suffering, and I can tell that my mother was in pain.
Hmm.
And I think also what helped me to transition into the person that I am today after my mom passing is that my mom knew what, some people know when it's their time. Um, and my mother secretly, I didn't know this because growing up, um, my father wasn't in my life. I remember my father until I was about 5 or 6 years old, and then after that, my father wasn't in my life. So secretly, my mother contacted my father and told him that she was sick and that she might not be here she might not be here too much longer.
Hmm.
So she made it a purpose for my mother. My mother made it a purpose for my father to get back into my life.
Hmm.
So that's why I say that I had a resentment towards God because the person that raised me just seemingly just passed
Hmm.
away.
Hmm.
But in the process, he made sure that I was never going to be by myself, and she made sure that I was never going to be by myself by putting my father back into my life.
Hmm.
So since my mother has passed, my father has been in my life. Matter of fact, I just talked to him earlier today. We was on the phone for about an hour, almost 2 hours. Um, and also it taught me how to forgive
Hmm.
because as a child, I was very angry because my father wasn't in my life.
Hmm.
And I played sports and I did a lot of things where I seen people who I played with, their father was there at their games.
Mm,
And they were there for them and this and that and the third. And I developed anger kind of towards that.
mm-hmm,
So when my mother passed, it was like even a more, it took that anger and like descended it way among the what I could handle.
mm-hmm,
But it also taught me how to forgive,
mm-hmm,
and how to make amends with the people who you call family.
mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, I've come across people who don't have a mother or father, and I was actually blessed to be able to have 25 years with my mother, and now it's been 14 years since she's passed, and now me and my father relationship is more tighter than I would ever thought it would ever be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was one of the things that helped me along the way, is that my mother knew that if I was here by myself, I probably would end up dead or in jail. But she made sure that my father was in my life because she knew that I would need that other parent to still be there, to still love me, and still instill in me the right things that need to be happening.
Wow. I'm glad to hear that you were able to reconcile with your father. And I think from my perspective, God is a seemingly a part of every experience that we endure as individuals. So I think to also be able to reconcile with your dad and also have a willingness to forgive God in terms of, you know, making the decision to, you know, transition your mother from the physical realm to the spiritual realm. I feel like all of that, you know, helps in just bettering you as an individual too.
Right.
And so that's an amazing testimony. Um, so
Yeah.
so I'm gonna transition on to another section of our podcast.
Okay.
And for those who are new to the podcast, um, there is a section that I call the nine multiple intelligence theory. And I'm going to present a chart for this so that you can have a better perspective on what we're going to discuss. So I'm going to do this now. And the podcast is going to conclude at 9 p.m. for those wondering. So this chart that you're going to see is it's called the nine multiple intelligence theory chart. And to give you context, there are two popularized theories when it comes to intellect in general. One is more popular than the other, and the more popular one has been adopted seemingly at least in America on a large scale. And this theory suggests that we as individuals have three forms of intellect. And those forms of intellect would be mathematical or logical, um, linguistic, which would reference writing abilities, reading, and scientific, or also known as naturalistic. And this theory was, I think, founded by a psychologist named Fred Binet. I think also there was another proponent of it. His name was Robert Stanberg. And so the reason why I say it's the more popularized theory when it comes to intellect is because when we are in our senior year of high school, we are tested um, by having to take the SAT exam. And the SAT exam generally consists of testing us based on reading, writing, and mathematics, and also science too. And depending on how well you perform in the SAT could determine if you are going to be accepted or admitted to a college. And so for Fred Beignet, he suggests if you have heightened intelligences in these three forms of intellect, then overall you are an intelligent person or a highly intelligent person. However, there is an alternative theory which was created by a psychologist named Howard Gardner.
Right.
He suggests, in addition to the three intellects that I mentioned, there's six additional intellects that we as individuals possess. And um, the reason why I like to talk about this concept is because it's possible for listeners to have preconceived ideas about themselves in terms of, oh, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at writing and science, so I could be a dummy. And that that I don't think that's the case because based on the multiple intelligence theory, you could be highly intelligent in other forms of intellect,
Right.
such as, for example, to use the musical intellect example, Kanye West, when listening to his music sounds dynamic and quite astonishing. So Kanye West would be a good representative of the musical intellect. And so it's possible for other individuals out there to also have heightened degrees based on this chart. And so if you are unaware of this and now you see it, this can help to heighten your self-esteem and also inspire you to want to discover more about yourself through learning and practicing.
Right.
So, based on this theory, it also suggests that it's possible to enhance all nine of these intellects do when you initiate practice and repetition. So, to use an analogy, Stephen Curry, it would seem, is a good basketball player due to his choosing to practice his free throws, his 3-point shooting with repetition compared to someone who doesn't practice as much, or even a Kobe Bryant. I've heard Kobe Bryant would practice like up to 5 to 6 hours. He could be working practicing 5 to 6 hours a day on bettering his shooting, and so as a result, we were able to see the results of his efforts.
Right.
So, so this is the multiple intelligence theory chart in the multiple, and so, um, what I want to ask Charles is, Charles, of the nine multiple intelligences displayed on this chart,
Hmm.
which one or more do you sense you have heightened intellect in, and how would you suggest those who are interested enhance those intellects that you also have these heightened degrees in?
Right. All right. So for me, I think the one that really resonated with me the most is the intro personal, which is understanding yourself and what I feel and what I want. I've always been a person that understood myself and who I was as an individual, right? I knew as a child I had some anger issues that I needed to work on. But at the same time, I knew that the feelings that I were having were from different situations that had went on in my life.
Mhm,
So that's one of the ones that I say that I resonate the most with.
mhm,
Another one is probably I think it's the not musical, but the bodily one.
Oh,
Yeah,
kinesthetic bodily.
kinesthetic. Yeah,
Hmm.
kinesthetic bodily. I'm sorry. And I say that because I was a person where growing up, I played a lot of sports. Um, as I got older, I got into lifting weights, knowing my body, being able to do certain things that I know other people couldn't. Um, and so I was able to condition my mind and body to go through things in life that some people will probably um, give up on.
Hmm.
And that for that one mainly what I'm going through in life now as being a healthy eater, a lot of people commend me because they say, well, because I tell them, they ask me how long I've been that, and I say like 6 years now. And they was like, wow, I commend you because I wouldn't be able to be that type of person to keep that going. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then I think the next one was probably the spatial, where
Space. Hmm.
I visualize the world in a 3D.
Hmm.
I've always been a person that's been able to see things that other people haven't been able to see.
Hmm.
Sometimes they get annoying because, you see things and you be like, man, you don't see what I'm seeing. Like, but then you realize that that's a gift that the Most High and the ancestors has given to you, and that the way that you can enhance that is by experiencing the world.
Hmm.
So for me, I'm a person that I've traveled 5 of the 7 continents.
Hmm.
I've been to Africa, I've been to Asia, I've been to China, I've been to we went to the Dominican Republic. Um, so when we were there, I seen certain things that certain people didn't see. And it just gave me a different perspective on life.
Hmm.
And then I say that for me, that one right there is one that I think that other people can enhance themselves
Hmm.
just by experiencing life.
Hmm.
Some people in life, they just don't want to leave outside their bubble.
Hmm.
Um, they're comfortable living in a world that doesn't make them feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I've always been a person who has put myself in some situations where um, it might not have been comfortable or a safe thing,
Hmm.
but because I seen the bigger picture and I was able to see the world in a different perspective, I was able to know that I'll be okay.
Hmm.
So I would say for people like that, for people who feel that they don't have that type of intelligence
Hmm.
to just experience life. Some people are just scared to experience life, and that's one of the things. And as
Hmm.
far as the intro personal,
Hmm.
I think that if people start getting more in tune with themselves and just listening to their inner thoughts, because
Hmm.
I've also learned how to meditate.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that helped me to get a better perspective and understanding of myself.
Hmm.
Because if you're able to sit in pure quietness, for and I it was very hard for me because I'm a person. When I was a child, they tried to label me as a person with ADHD.
Hmm.
So my mind used to sometimes race all over the place.
Hmm.
But I've learned how to control that and shut that down and just start looking in within myself and understanding myself and knowing what's going to make me feel happy in life
Hmm.
and what's going to make me feel joyous in life.
Hmm.
And I think another one for me um, is probably the intro personal. I've been always a person that's been able to get along with anybody.
Hmm.
I really and it's been kind of like I thought it was like a sixth sense sometimes,
Hmm.
but even when someone doesn't even tell me how they feeling, I can kind of like feel that.
Hmm.
I can kind of like sense people motives.
Hmm.
You know, when you meet certain people, I don't know about everybody, but I kind of like get that like feeling like, oh yeah, this is not going to be a person that I want to interact with. You know what I mean? So, or, I can sense like I've always kind of sensed danger where I was able to get myself out of situations where I knew that it probably wasn't going to be a good situation for me. So that feeling that I get, or the feeling that I can feel from others, that as they call it now, the vibes. I was able to get the vibes from people. I've always been able to get that since I was a kid.
Hmm.
I never knew what it was, but I realized, after reading this chart and getting to do my research on these things and understanding, like, yeah, that's basically what it was. Where as an intro personal person,
Hmm.
I was able to feel sense and feel other people's motives and feelings.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are the three things that I think that I have most about. And
Hmm.
also for the intro personal, I feel like for people to enhance that themselves,
Hmm.
just listen to your conscious.
Hmm.
Listen to that inner thought.
Hmm.
Because as the saying goes, go with your first instincts and not overthink things.
Hmm.
That's what I do. Like,
Hmm.
I don't try to overthink things. I don't try to figure out like why this person is doing what they're doing, because
Hmm.
everybody has, you know, what they got going on. I
Hmm.
just try to sometimes put myself in that person's shoes and just get a better perspective and learn from that.
That's interesting. And from my perspective, as I'm hearing you elaborate and express um, your senses of the intellects from the outside looking in, I would also advocate that you do have a heightened degree of the intrapersonal, which is self-smart, due to the fact that you did mention that you initiated, I think you said 6 years ago, to refine how you ate food, which is now
Right.
mostly plant-based, and to maintain that pattern up until this day, to me suggests or indicates that you do have a sense and understanding of yourself. Otherwise, why would you want to eat plant-based foods versus going out to a Burger King if you didn't sense um, a benefit to that type of effort?
Right.
So, yeah, I can relate to what you're saying in that particular section of the diagram. Also, so the next question is which one of or more of the nine intellects do you sense you have low degrees of intellect, and uh why or why not would you want to enhance them?
I would say that the probably the one on this chart that I have is probably the lowest is probably the naturalist.
Uh-huh.
Um, I've never been a understanding of a person of like living things. Like for example, I had a dog growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the dog used to be chained up to the tree,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not understanding that as the same kind of like as human beings, that canines need to be exercised. They need to have interactions. They need to have a certain environment in order to um, perform the duties that you want that animal or that canine to perform.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I want to get better in that, because now living out here in the country, I want to take this land that I live on and make it self-sufficient for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a healthy eater, I want to learn how to grow my own food.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the ones that I think that I have a low, because I don't have as they call it, a green thumb.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to learn how to get that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be so self-sufficient in as a naturalist that I can live off the grid if I had to.
Mm-hmm.
So learning that and reading nature and reading living things, because that's going to require me getting animals such as, uh, even though I don't eat meat, but you can get animals that can help the land grow in the way it grow.
Mm-hmm.
So perfect example is I've learned since being out here that even though I don't eat meat, that cows and goats are good to have, especially on a farm, or on a lot of land property, because they help maintain your grass. They also, with their manure, they help with growing things, like plants and vegetables and stuff like that. Also, I've learned that like having certain things um, coincide with um, just overall nature. Like I realized that everything that's on God's earth is here for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to learn the purpose of each one of those things. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's one of the things that I really want to to get to,
Mm-hmm.
um and enhance my intelligence in that aspect of life.
Okay. I could relate to you to that. I would say I have a moderate amount of naturalist intellect. I've had a great grandmother who had a garden and tended to that. And so being able to assist her and tending to the garden helped to enhance my intellect. And so I have a appreciation for nature to the point where I enjoy like being in nature in terms of like going on hikes or even just like bird watching. And I think in order to enhance that intellect, and I think you had mentioned this too, is simply expose yourself to an experience versus uh, being comfortable with having a predictable lifestyle, which in my opinion takes effort. I think it takes effort to be predictable. Um, and alternatively, it takes effort to live an unpredictable lifestyle. It's just a matter of how aware are you in terms of what your intention is when you choose to initiate yourself. And yeah, I think just real quickly, I think in terms of my intrapersonal intelligence, I think I have discovered the importance of having an awareness of intention. I think if we can be aware of what we intend to do, it will help us to live a more self-disciplined lifestyle. I think it's possible for us to do things very erratically and recklessly, but if we have an awareness of what our intentions are, be
Right,
it the words that we say, the food that we eat, um, the people we choose to be around, it could possibly help to refine and grow ourselves uh, to a higher degree. When I think about our bodies, I think the various body parts have intentional purpose to it. Like our
right,
noses are there for the intention of breathing air. Our
right,
hearts beat with the intent to circulate our blood.
right,
So I think sometimes we can overlook the subtleties of life.
right,
And but if we, take the time to just clear our minds and not be so focused on trying to predict what should happen next or what could happen next and be more present, we can be better grounded, as you had said,
right,
in reality.
right.
So I just wanted to express that to people, and hopefully they can relate to that. Um, I think we're gonna move on because we're getting close to the end of the podcast. We're gonna
Okay,
move to another section. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And so the next section of the podcast is titled Interpreting Expression. And to describe what that is, um, throughout life or humanity, there have been quotes, statements, are questions that have had profound impacts on the lives of others, including myself. But um, sometimes we don't have, sometimes there's not opportunity to share interpretations of what's being read by the individual with other people in hopes that our interpretations through expression could be relatable to someone else, and what can result in expressing our interpretations of something could also create uh, a better perspective on what was stated, written down, because each individual has their own perspective. You know, I can only see through my eyes as Charles sees through his,
Right.
but there's still value in the experience of sharing. So I left the quote at the top of the chat in the group chat for this episode, and it says, this is the quote: "Being courageous is initiating, then being content with not knowing what will happen next." I'll read it one more time. Being courageous is initiating, then being content with not knowing what will happen next. Charles, how would you interpret that statement, and how relatable is it to yourself?
Well, for me, I hearing that statement is kind of like knowing the unknown. Uh, Going through life, I have experienced things, and after experiencing those things, you think to yourself, like, how am I able to go on and move on or make this into a better situation?
Hmm.
Um, so when I hear that, it's like you can express yourself in certain ways, but you also got to know, like my grandfather used to say, you just got to know when to close your mouth. You just you got to know when to close your mouth, sit back, and just look and observe the room.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, I'm always a person where a lot of people be like they say that you're quiet all the time until you get to know me. Then some people say that I can talk your head off, but a lot of it comes from the fact that my grandfather told me that just observe the room and observe your surroundings, and you can learn a lot by just looking and not talking.
Mm.
So for me, that's what I'm hearing when I hear that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Are there any particular experiences that you can reference that is applicable to that statement in your personal experience?
Yeah. So basically, when I was in college, my senior year, I had experience where the people that I put my trust in turned on me, and I was put in jail. And while I was in jail, I was thinking to myself, like, how am I going to go on with life after this experience? Is this going to damage me as a man? Is this going to damage me as a person to succeed in life? And that's when I had one of those visions when my mother came to me. And my mother used to always grab me by my face and kiss me on my cheek, and she'd be like, just walk by faith and not by sight.
Hmm.
And so at that moment, I realized that this moment that I'm having is a learning experience.
Hmm.
And since then, I've taken that and I've been able to succeed and even go farther than my expectation in life that I would thought that I would ever do, especially after that experience.
Hmm.
I thought I was never going to be able to get a job. I thought I was never going to be able to own anything or succeed in life because I thought, I was taught that when you go to jail, it's over for you. You know what I mean? Like that's a stain on your on your character and who you are as a person. But I never allowed that situation to dictate my outcome in my life because like I said, if I did, I probably would be still in jail or dead.
Yeah.
So that right there is one of the things where I took something that was a negative and turned it into a positive.
Hmm. Okay. I appreciate that. That was valuable information for myself that I'll take with me. My interpretation uh of the being courageous and initiating and not knowing what happened next is there was times in my life where I thought it's necessary for me to try to preconceive what will happen next in order for me to function in the present moment.
Right.
But then I come to the realization that the it seems to me that the present moment is ever changing. And I'll just reference the wind. The
Right.
wind comes and it goes unexpectedly.
Right.
And so if I'm trying to have an expectation of when the wind should blow my way, that can hold me up in terms of how I want to move in the present
Yeah.
moment. And
Right.
so I just think, it's an internal adjustment that I had to make.
Right.
And if I'm willing to surrender the idea that I have to try to control things versus just simply going with the flow of life. And to describe what that is, I know people say it very clichély. The way I define going with the flow of life is it seems like I'm constantly attracting experiences in my life, whether
Right.
I want to or not.
Right.
Things are coming my way, be it a, a, a mosquito flying and biting me to
Right.
uh, a little girl like in the store just unexpectedly saying hello. Like those were things that I wasn't looking for, but seemed like I attracted them one way or the other.
Right.
And so if I'm constantly attracting experiences, then I should also be able to, move within these experiences that are coming my way. And so if I'm able to move in these experiences, that's how I define going with the flow, moving within the things that are constantly seemingly coming my way in this ever-changing world that's in constant motion. Um, and so I think a reference experience would be um like so I like to initiate conversations with people if I'm out and about.
Right.
I, and friends who know me know like this is something that I do. And I think I emulate my father. My father is also an extroverted type of person. And so initially, I think I was just doing it because, I was around my dad, but due to my just, having a just quiet in my mind and like having a realization like, oh, I do it because I enjoy it. I enjoy like just enhancing my perspective on life due to me initiating it myself by saying hello to someone and getting to know someone that I never knew before. And but there's times when, I will say hello to someone or ask them how they're doing. And I would say on like probably like 80% of the people that I say that to will not even give me a hello back. And so when I encounter those type of experiences as someone who's extroverted, um, a label, I'm just saying that to give y'all context. Um, I it can be challenging because the next thing that I've done in my head is doubt myself for even saying hello in the first place. So I'd be like, man, if I wouldn't have said hello in the first place, I wouldn't have to endure them like being passive aggressive and not saying anything at all.
Right.
So there's been times where I fell into the temptation of doubting my efforts. But if I'm patient, um, an alternative experience that can happen is unexpectedly um, having someone coming my way and saying hello to me without me having to say anything, or or saying hello to someone and they reciprocate by saying hello to me.
Right.
And so to have those type of experiences where people are reciprocating, um, it's a good feeling, and it helps me to like to have a appreciation for people when you experience reciprocation and be like, yeah, there's people out there that's just like me who are want to, be friendly and kind and polite and encouraging. And those are people that are who reflect me. And I honestly, I prefer to be amongst people who reflect me in terms of my internal self. It's because it just feels good. And it also helps me to have when you encounter people who reciprocate your behavior, it helps you to also have compassion for the people who don't want to say hello and reciprocate. It's like, well, they're probably just not at a phase of development as I am, but I'm not gonna doubt that they may, never get there, but hopefully they will. So
Right.
um, that's my interpretation of that quote. And for other people, this live stream is going to be recorded at the conclusion, but I do encourage y'all to, um, if you want to give your interpretation, leave that in the comments, and I will respond if it's relevant, if I can relate to what you're saying. So. With that being said, we are reaching the conclusion of the Journey of Self-Growth podcast. I do want to encourage other people who have been inspired by Charles and I's conversation to consider being a guest on the show. It's an open invitation to everyone. If you would like to be a guest on the show, you can reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is posted in the left corner or right corner of the window. And it is at KETE.music. Just send me a message with your email or your Instagram profile, and I'll reach out to you. I think the more the better, because everyone has a journey in terms of
Right.
growing themselves. And
Right.
so your perspective is unique and special. And I believe that it's possible that not only myself, but other people can gain value from it and vice versa. Charles, what would be your parting words?
Um, I would just say to people like finding out who you are as a person can help you with self-growth. Once you can internalize and understand who you are as a person, you can grow from that and you can go on and live a better life. Because we have a lot of people in the world who um, are way concerned about how other people perceive them instead of how they perceive themselves to the world. So that would be my message to everybody to learn thyself. And once you're at peace with who you are as a person, what other people have to say about you or do towards you won't affect you because you know who you are as a person.
Hmm. I agree with you. But this concludes the Journey of Self-Growth podcast, episode 14. Charles, if you're available, how open would you be to doing another episode with me in the future?
Oh, very, very much so, man. I didn't even realize the time had gone by. I'm on the Central Time, so it's almost 12 o'clock where I'm at. But I've been enjoying the conversation, and if people can learn from my experience and what we're saying, I'm very open to it.
Okay, great. I hope everyone will enjoy the rest of the evening. I appreciate you all. Good night.
Ashay.
All right.